Good evening and welcome to our Candidates Forum. I'm Alice Pernick. I'm co-president of the League of Women Voters of Larchmont, Mamaroneck. Our mission is to empower voters and defend democracy. The League of Women Voters is nonpartisan and neither supports nor opposes any of the candidates. Tonight we'll be hearing from two candidates who are running in the June primary to become the Democratic candidate on the ballot in the November general election for one Village of Mamaroneck trustee position. And just to give you a heads up, also on the ballot in November will be a Village of Mamaroneck mayoral race and local ballot measures. The ballot measures would lengthen the term of office for all village board members, including the mayor, and change the village election cycle so that elections would be held every other year instead of every year as is currently the case. As the general election approaches, the League will continue to keep you informed about what you can expect on your ballot. And as for this primary race, early voting will begin on Saturday, June 17th, and continue through Sunday, June 25th. Registered Democrats eligible to vote in the primary will be able to cast their ballot at any of Westchester County's 11 designated early voting locations, which include the Mamaroneck Town Center. For those who don't vote early, primary day this year will be on Tuesday, June 27th. On that day, you must vote at your usual assigned polling site from 6 a.m. until 9 p.m. For more election information, visit our League of Women Voters site, vote411.org. Here's my low-tech, vote411.org, and enter your address. And you can also find information about polling locations and hours and voting by absentee ballot on the County Board of Elections website, which is citizenparticipation.westchestergov.com. To help keep you informed, these debates are provided by the League of Women Voters of Larchmont, Mamaroneck. We're a small but mighty group of volunteers. In addition to our candidate forums, our activities include sponsoring local students to participate in the State League's Students Inside Albany program, hosting our annual luncheon, this year with Speaker New York State Attorney General Letitia James, contributing our local information to the Vote 411 Voters Guide, welcoming new citizens at Naturalization Court and encouraging them to vote, and registering voters. We keep you informed via our lwvlm.org website, our Facebook page, and our informational email blasts about local, county, state, and federal elections, school board elections, and budget votes, and issues you care about, such as voting, the environment, and equal rights laws. We also advocate for voters locally. During this past year, we advocated for more transparency and communication from the Mamaroneck School District regarding school board elections. We went to Village Hall to advocate that the proposed changes to terms of office and the election cycle be decided by you, the voters, in a ballot measure, rather than decided by the 5 members of the board. And we advocated to the County Board of Elections for greater transparency and accountability after concerns were raised following our last village election in November 2022. Tomorrow night, on June 15th, at our annual meeting, we will be honoring Mamaroneck High School teacher extraordinaire Joe Liberti with our Defending Democracy Award. The event will be held at J. Anderson's Bookstore, 96 Chatsworth Avenue in Larchmont at 6 p.m. We'll have refreshments and free league memberships for high school and college students, so we hope you'll join us. In order to continue to serve our community, we need active participants in our local league. Although our name reflects our roots in the women's suffrage movement, we welcome members and volunteers of all genders. Please get involved in one of our many activities. When you support our local league, you are also supporting the county, state, and national leagues, of which we are a part, and all of which work to protect and promote the rights of voters to participate in this most fundamental act of democracy. We'll soon begin this debate. This year, in addition to league-generated questions, members of the public submitted their suggestions for questions for the candidates in advance. And additionally, those in attendance tonight may submit suggested questions to our league member, Phyllis Caskell, who's been circulating about. until I'm finished talking, which is going to be very soon. We thank those who took the time to submit their questions, but we regret that we may not be able to ask them all. If you don't hear your question asked, it may be because we combined questions on the same topics, or because of time constraints, or because of nonconformance with our nonpartisan policy. We appreciate your understanding. Before we begin, I want to thank LMC Media for their live broadcast and the town of Mamaroneck for the use of the town center. Thanks also to League member Cindy Dirks, who will be serving as our timekeeper tonight. And finally, I want to extend our welcome and our thanks to tonight's moderator, Mr. John Hessel. Mr. Hessel is the Vice President of the League of Women Voters of New Rochelle, and he's moderated dozens of debates in Westchester County. We are pleased to have him with us tonight, and I now turn the debates over to Mr. Hessel.
Thank you very much. So this forum features candidates for the Village of Mamaroneck Democratic primary for village trustees. A coin toss determined the order of the candidate statements and questions, and the order will be rotated during the forum. Each candidate will have 1 minute and 30 seconds to make an opening statement, and then we'll follow that with questions for the candidates. The questions, as you heard, were gathered by and prepared by the Larchmont Mamaroneck League of Women Voters and also from you, and they were submitted to this forum. Each candidate will have 1 minute and 30 seconds for each question. Then they'll have closing statements, and that will also be 1 minute and 30 seconds. Our timekeeper will hold up warning signs when there are 30 seconds left, and then also a stop sign. We don't have rebuttals in this forum, but if you have any kind of rebuttal statement, you can put it in your closing statements. Okay? There's no video or audio recording of this event out loud outside of, except for the League of Women Voters broadcast here. The League owns the forum, and only those permitted by the League may record, and even those must air the forum in its entirety because the FCC requires that a debate must not be edited and must be broadcast in its entirety, either live or reasonably soon after it takes place. Please silence your cell phones. I have to check mine. I think I silenced it already. Yes. Please hold all applause until the forum is over. Any disruptions will cause a pause in the forum, and we'd hate to have to terminate the forum. Okay, so we have our two candidates, Mallory Chin and Nora Lucas. And Ms. Lucas, you have the opening statement.
So, thank you. So my name is Nora Lucas, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. All the people who came tonight, it's the first time in really 4 years that we've had a room full of people, and all the people who are home watching it on LMC-TV or will watch it when it's recorded. My husband, who's one of the people who's in this room, and I both attended local schools, including Mamaroneck High School. We raised our daughter in the Rhinebeck School District, where we live now. And within a month of my moving to the Village of Mamaroneck, or our moving here, I joined the Landmarks Advisory Committee, on which I served as chair for many years. I was on the board of the Mamaroneck Affordable Housing Corporation, which built an ADA-compliant village hall, which included some affordable housing units. I was on the flood mitigation committee for years, and I was a Girl Scout leader for a long period of time, and currently serve as a Silver Award mentor. Many residents, including Mallory, remember my mom, who was librarian at Chatsworth, and she started me on my career in public service by advocating for keeping libraries in the schools. During the course of the campaign, I've visited many, many neighborhoods, and people want to know why I'm running, given the incivility on the board. And I just say it's simple. I believe I'm an effective trustee. I have the experience to continue to be an effective trustee. I don't follow others blindly. I'm passionate about good government, and I hope you will vote in a week.
Thank you very much. Ms. Chin?
Thank you. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting our forum tonight. When Hurricane Ida hit the village a year ago, I saw a new side of Mamaroneck that shook me to the core. As an engaged community activist, I jumped into our relief efforts, working to distribute recovery resources in Washingtonville. I was shocked to find out that inaction on the part of our elected officials had left us more vulnerable. Mamaroneck needs elected officials who will stand up for working families. I'm a 26-year veteran middle school social studies teacher and the building representative for my teachers union. Working with my students has taught me to see issues from multiple perspectives, elevate voices that may not be the loudest in the room, and think deeply about social justice and responding to difficult questions. I'm a lifelong resident with 3 children who have gone through the Mamaroneck school system, one still in 7th grade at Homix. My husband's been teaching at MAS for 31 years. I've seen this community at its best, and I've seen it at its worst. We need progress. We need leaders who are going to be on the front lines of implementing the Army Corps plan and parallel flooding mitigation. We need comprehensive pedestrian safety and action. In the past 3 weeks, 2 children have been struck by motor vehicles in our village. Every one of these incidents is a policy failure and must be treated as such. What we need now is a forward-thinking, progressive, and ambitious approach to putting working families back in control in Mamaroneck. I'm proud to be endorsed by Congressman Jamal Bowman, Mayor Tom Murphy, Trustees Rawlings, Yiser, Reed, and Young. My name is Mallory Chin, and I hope to count on your vote in the June Democratic primary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Ms. Chin, you're going to get the first question.
Great.
Okay, thank you. And then you'll get it after. Okay. Why are you the best candidate to represent the Democratic Party in the village of Mamaroneck?
Thank you. I'm bringing a lot of qualities to the table. As I said, my experience as a public school teacher has prepared me to see issues from multiple points of view. I also have extensive experience volunteering in the community. I serve as a district leader for District 17, and I've been knocking doors now for last year when I managed Leilani's campaign, and then most recently, I've been out almost every night for weeks talking to voters, and I think that I'm approachable, I'm open-minded, I have a strong independent voice, and I'm open to learning from my voters and enacting the change that they'd like to see.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Lucas?
Thank you. Well, I actually think that I've done a very good job as village trustee in the course of my campaigning in this last cycle, or in the many years I've done it in this last cycle in particular. I meet people who don't agree with me always on issues, but think that I'm doing a good job in terms of being the civil voice on the Board of Trustees, listening to the public, listening to other trustees, and doing my research and making sure that I understand the issues before I vote on them. I have a lot of experience in working in all levels of government from my professional career. I work with state, local, and federal governments. I work in environmental review. I understand the significance of our land use process. I am quite concerned about the relaxed way in which we've been dealing with environmental review, treating, in some cases, the reviews from our Harbor and Coastal Zone Management Committee, an important volunteer board, with disrespect and, frankly, ignoring it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay, here's our next question. This is going to start with you,
okay.
Ms. Lucas. What are your views on affordable housing in the village?
Well, affordable housing is one of my passions. I have worked on affordable housing for more than 30 years. We are trying to build an all-affordable building on the Hunter lot, and hopefully that will come to fruition. It's a good idea to try because we own the property, and that is one of the biggest hurdles in building affordable housing. We have adopted laws. We're about to adopt a portion of the model law, which requires developers to build affordable housing, but they're building a small amount of units at 80% AMI, which is not deeply affordable. And no matter what we mandate, the reality is we have to get developers are developers. They have to make money, and we need to work with the county and we need to work with the state to leverage the funds that are available so that we can get projects built in our building that are affordable for developers who are willing to, who specialize in affordable housing. We have done a couple of projects in the village which unfortunately had units that sunset because affordability was only required for 20 years. So those units are now market rate units, and that needs to stop. We need to make sure that when we develop for in perpetuity being 99 or 100 years.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Chin.
Yes, thank you. When I met my husband in 1988, he was actually living in the Hammocks Road apartments, and they had affordable units, and he was actually able to live there because being a public school teacher, that was available to him through a lottery system, so I am familiar with this concept. I totally support affordable housing. As a member of the planning board, one thing I'm seeing is that these buildings are beautiful, they are flood resilient. I think that we need to ask developers to do a school impact study so that we understand the impact on our local schools. That's something I've been talking a lot to my husband about because he's been at MAS for so long. And I think we also need to require developers to put together a plan that would attract renters from a range of incomes. Right now, a lot of the AMIs are at 80%, and we'd want to see them go as low as like 30 or 40%, so it would really make a difference to our DPW workers and our teachers. I know what it's like to, I have a pretty short commute, about a half hour, but a lot of my colleagues who work in northern Westchester have to drive like an hour to get to work, and it really makes a huge difference in your daily life. We really want our local workers to be able to live in our community. It makes our community stronger, and we are stronger together. I know that's true.
Okay, thank you. This is for you, Ms. Chin. There are several developments in progress between White Plains and Harrison, which will send more water through our already constricted waterways. What would you, as a trustee, do to protect our residents?
Thank you. I think it's important that we communicate with our local municipalities to make sure that our voice is heard as their development is underway. I see that we're all connected and that flooding is an issue that goes beyond just Mamaroneck. There are definitely steps that are long overdue in terms of collaborating with the Army Corps to carry out the Army Corps of Engineer plan, and I think we also have to look at our own parallel flood mitigation measures. But mostly I think I would reach out and try to collaborate with the other boards and municipalities to make sure that the problem was, that we were being heard loudly and clearly, and that we had a say in what they were doing.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Lucas?
Thank you. So we actually, I brought this up and put it on the agenda for this past week. There's a big project on the golf course in White Plains, and the village has asked to be an interested agency, which means we will get notices about the project, but that's all well and good. We still have to go to the meetings, and we still have to make comments. Our planner, we now have a full-time planner, which is a good thing. He's been back for about a month. He helped make comments in the scoping session to try and make sure that stormwater management was a portion of what is the planning board in White Plains will be considering on that project, but we have a lot more to do, and he is going to be monitoring that project for us. I have recommended that if it's beyond his ability in terms of his workload, because we have a lot of projects for him, that we actually have a planning consultant monitor that project and make sure that we are ensuring that they keep the stormwater on that property. But also, there's a lot of federal and state money that's coming down the pike, including money from the Environmental Bond Act that passed last year, and those are for flood mitigation, regional flood mitigation projects, and we have local flooding that's a regional problem, and we need to be working with other municipalities because these are projects, they want to fund projects from more than one municipality, and if we don't start to figure out how we can work with other municipalities, we will not be in the pipeline for that funding, and that's something that we're not doing, and we need to start.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Lucas, this next question is for you. Aside from flooding, what do you see as the most pressing issues in the village right now, and why?
Aside from flooding?
Aside from flooding.
Well, I think that one of the big issues is the affordability of housing. We have lost some affordable units through they're no longer being considered affordable units, so that they've gone to market rate. We've lost affordable units because buildings that were affordable were demolished for other purposes. That was a result of our TOD, our Transportation Development District, which has basically netted us a negative number of affordable units because we've torn down more units than we built. So I think that figuring out affordable housing throughout the community is essential. I also think we have to coordinate with the schools. I know that there's quite an issue now because the schools, the town of Mamaroneck schools are overcrowded, and any development, whether it's affordable or market rate, can impact those schools. And I think that we, as a municipality, we don't have the resources that the city has, and New York City has, where they run both the zoning codes and they run the schools, but we need to figure out how to work with the schools so that the schools know what the development proposals are, and that we can work with the schools to make sure that there are methods for them to expand and accommodate the students that are living in the village.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Chin?
Thank you. I think another really important issue is safe streets. Our village is currently walkable. We say that a lot, we hear that a lot, but it's actually not pedestrian friendly at all. My son often rides his bike to Homics, and I don't breathe easy until I can look at my app and see that he's made it to school. In fact, in 1969, 55% of K-8 children walked or biked to school, and 10 years ago, in 2009, that number was down to 6%. I would guess it's even lower now, and I understand why. I think we need to dream big. I think we should be looking at a bike lane. My sister lives in Telluride, Colorado, and there's a free local shuttle. It's called the Galloping Goose, and it goes all over the village where she lives, and I can imagine something like that here that could pick you up at the harbor, take you to the Avenue, take you to MAS. Maybe it could even go to Larchmont Village. Maybe it could be a Town of Mamaroneck joint project. So I don't think we need more parking lots to solve this. It would certainly add to our flood problems, but I would like to see the village become more pedestrian friendly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, Ms. Chin, this one's for you, or starts with you. How would you, as a trustee, promote civil participation and respectful discourse in board meetings?
Thank you. I think that one thing that we need to work on as a board is more of a back and forth with education. I've heard from a lot of my voters that they're wondering what goes on our committees, what goes on the land use board. Sometimes I hear of progress, and then later people who you'd think would know all about it don't know anything about it. So I'm imagining a new tab on our village website that has updates on a 30-day cycle. And I think that that would also help with the discourse at the board meetings, because I think if residents could come in feeling more informed, feeling like they're in the loop and they know what's going on, I think it would change the tenor of the meetings. And I think that we could even have actual handouts, like we call in 7th grade social studies speak, we call them one-pagers. So if you're wondering what's the latest with the traffic commission, that you would get the one-pager and it would be up to date as of 30 days ago. So I think that would help a lot with helping everybody to get along and literally be on the same page at every meeting. Thanks.
Okay. Ms. Lucas?
I think that the discourse at the Board of Trustees meetings, which I think is what your question is really stems from the top. And there is a feeling that the Board of Trustees does not need to listen to not need to listen to the public, does not need to be respectful to the public. And I have talked to many people who've come to board meetings and they don't want to come back. They watch them on television, and they're appalled by the rudeness that occurs towards the public, and then they come to a meeting and they find that it's even more oppressive in the room. So I think that the Board of Trustees has adopted a resolution requiring residents to be polite and respectful to staff members, and I think that everyone should be respectful to the staff in the Village of Mamaroneck, but I think the Board of Trustees has an obligation to be respectful to the public. There's a story that's told frequently about a current trustee who was very hot with someone and was proud of it, and was told by another elected official who was a judge, that anger is a luxury you can no longer afford if you're an elected official. And no matter how frustrated we are, we need to simply respectfully listen to the residents. I think that should be the goal.
Okay, thank you. And this is for you, Ms. Lucas. What can the village do to tackle equity, racial, socio-economical, et cetera?
Well, that's a big question, and that's a big topic. I think one of the things the village can do to tackle equity is to have a better conversation about affordable housing. We have, I think there has been some opposition to our proposals for affordable housing, and I think in some cases it's because people don't understand what affordable housing is and why housing is affordable to some people and not others. People don't understand the history of redlining. They don't understand the history of real estate development and how some people were able to get mortgages and some people were not able to get mortgages. So I think a better conversation about what equity is, which is something that we started in 2020, but we really limited the training to staff members. And I think that a better conversation about why we're in the place we're in would be helpful. And I think organizations like CURE and One Mamaroneck have made a great start to doing that. And I think the village should hop on the bandwagon and be more supportive of those organizations and their work.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Chin?
Thank you. Actually, as part of my work as a teacher, I was invited to be part of a 2-year Pride Equity Fellowship, and we engaged in 2 years of really important lessons about history, about vocabulary, about pride and privilege, about white supremacy, and I think that this training is needed widely in the village, not just for elected officials. So I'm imagining some kind of Pride Equity Fellowship that we could bring to Mamaroneck. I think that it's important that people have a lens of social justice, and I don't think that that's possible without understanding how we ended up where we are. I think we need greater representation on all of our boards, and I think we need to think about behaviors that keep people away from running for office. It's been a really eye-opening experience for me to run and to see the challenges that I've had to face that were often tied up in privilege and money. And I could understand why, the board has been so, really had like maybe one side to it for so many years. I think we need to increase representation on all of our boards, and a DEI task force would do that.
Okay, thank you. This one's going to be with you, Ms. Chin.
Yes.
What, if anything, should we be doing to upgrade our aging infrastructure?
Okay, thank you so much. I think there should be a few priorities. One would be to repair decrepit buildings. We also need to improve our parks. I've been spending a lot of time over by Florence Park, and I know that there's parts of it that are in disrepair that need upgraded. I already talked about making our village more walkable and bikeable. I'd love to see funding for projects like that. My opponent, Ms. Lucas, voted against the 5-year capital improvement plan, and I think that that's a really important plan for the village. It included pedestrian safety measures. I would have been a yes vote for that. I think that we need to do more for pedestrian safety and more to stay on top of the upkeep of our buildings so we don't end up in the situation we're in now.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Lucas.
Yeah, well, so I'm going to say why I voted against that. It was about $125 million over 5 years. It was a capital Christmas wish list. We typically have about $8 million in bonding in a given year. We can't really afford to bond all of those projects, so it was just a wish list. We didn't make good decisions. We didn't decide what we wanted to bond. We just made a list of everything we wanted. And we have a capital spending plan, which is this big spending plan, but we don't have a capital budget, which means we haven't allocated money and aligned it with what we are going to bond. And when we bond, we can bond over $200 million, but then we have to pay it back. It's like maxing out your credit cards. And so we would have to pay the interest and principal back in our operating budget, which means taxes go up. So I think all of those items would be great to do, but we can't afford to do all those items. In fact, one of the things that we did this year was, and we've done in the past, we're first meeting in our new year, we're spending money on something that wasn't in our capital plan for a couple of years because something broke and we need to fix it, and we're not taking it away from something else. So we're not dealing with our capital expenses in a reasonable way. And we're okay financially now, but we may not be. We have big expenses coming down the road, and we have to be careful.
Thank you. Ms. Chin?
Mm-hmm.
Should we have a community? Oh, no. Sorry. Where am I at? Okay, Ms. Chin. Should we have a community refrigerator to store food for the needy? If so, where should it be located?
So yes, I don't know that I would phrase it that way, food for the needy. I think that I would want to collaborate with the Larchmont Mamaroneck Hunger Task Force. They are making an enormous effort right now, twice a week. They are providing food to hundreds of families in the village. I would never be so presumptuous to think that I myself would know the answer. I would reach out to Sarah Cody, who runs that effort. My daughter used to set up a street store in Columbus Park, and the Larchmont Mamaroneck food pantry truck would come once a month, and there was a line through the park. It's clearly a very important need. So yes, the refrigerator is a terrific idea. I think that we need to revitalize that little alleyway where the CVS was, where the Life Church just moved in. And that could be a place for it, but I think that it's definitely a project that would require collaboration with efforts that are similar that are already underway.
Okay, thank you.
So I believe that the Hunger Task Force was asked because they now they're renting a facility, and now they actually have a facility that's their own on Mamaroneck Avenue, and when this initially came up, they did not want to have it on their property. They didn't think that they could maintain it. So I think that if we're going to have a community refrigerator, there has to be a sponsor for it. It needs to be sustained, because it's not, if the village were to put it on village property, then the village would need to take ownership of it, make sure that it had electricity, that it was clean, that it was safe. So I think that if there is going to be a community fridge, the community fridge needs to partner with some sort of an organization that can support it, because it needs the support of some group who can maintain it and make sure that it's safe and clean and plugged in.
Okay, thank you. This is for you, Ms. Lucas. What ideas for raising additional revenue do you have to combat rising property taxes?
So, well, we've done, we only have a couple of ways of raising revenue. One is property taxes, which nobody wants to raise, and the other is fees. We've been very lucky in the last 2 years because our current county executive is sharing sales tax with us, which does not happen in every community in Westchester County. And actually, it does not happen in every community in New York State. It happens in Westchester counties. And we've benefited greatly from the increased sales tax and from the fact that online purchases are now required to pay sales tax, and it's targeted to the zip code. Other things that we can do and we have tried to do are being careful about our building department fees, making sure that they cover the costs of the efforts of the building department. And we have, I am the liaison of the Budget Committee, and the Budget Committee has done a couple of analyses in the last year, including how we charge out police officers for overtime, because we were losing money on that, and now we make sure when you see those details of people who are guarding construction sites, we are making sure that the village doesn't lose money over them. We know how to charge for our renting out of Harbor Island Park for events, and we're also doing that with building department fees. So I think we just have to continually look regularly.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Chin.
Thanks. I understand that our budget's made up mainly of salaries, benefits, utilities. I think some costs could be reduced by way of attrition over time. Further spending could be reduced by modernizing our facilities to include more energy-efficient designs that could ultimately cut costs and maintain a leaner budget. I know that a building just became, a building came before the planning board, not a village building, but a building with multiple units, and the builder was seeking silver LEED certification. So I know through my history with, I work with sustainability, and I built a school garden at my school, and I think that as we look to modernize our facilities, that requiring some level of LEED certification or the equivalent of a LEED certification would also keep our costs down. And I think the village should continue to pursue alternative revenue streams so we're not so dependent upon our property taxpayers, and we could become a more green and sustainable community at the same time.
Okay, thank you. All right, this one's for you, Ms. Chin. What do you think of Hampshire Country Club's offer of land to the Mamaroneck School District in exchange for the Village Board of Trustees rezoning the property? Do you support or oppose the rezoning, and why?
I 100% oppose the rezoning. I've lived here my whole life, and I remember when I was in high school, that whole area flooded, and one of my classmates was actually involved in trying to rescue somebody who was caught in that flood. So I don't think, I think that we need to stay on the track that we're on. I do not think it should be rezoned. I think it opens up a precedent for other areas that are on the waterfront to potentially turn into condominium developments. And I think that it's not a one-size-fits-all plan. In terms of saying, yes, we want more buildings, we want more affordable housing, but it can't just be anywhere. So definitely not there, and I definitely do not support the rezoning.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Lucas?
Yes, thanks. So I oppose the rezoning of Hampshire and have for many years. A previous Board of Trustees said no, did not entertain the rezoning. Hampshire sued, and the village won. So I think that's pretty much settled. I think the current proposal to give land to the school board complicates an issue because it's pitting residents against residents, because some residents would like this land in return for leveraging a permission from the village. And I think it's a very bad precedent. We have a lot of animosity in our country, and I don't think we need that kind of animosity in the village. I think we should not rezone Hampshire. The portion that would be rezoned is a small portion. It's in the marine zone. It would impact the boatyards, the other clubs, and even commercial properties on the other marine zones in the village. And we have an LWRP that we adopted more than 40 years ago. It has been the guiding principle that has maintained the seaside character, or the working waterfront character of our community. And I think it's sacrosanct, and rezoning Hampshire would put us down a slippery slope of losing our marine zones and our LWRP.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ms. Lucas. There are two local measures which will appear on the ballot in November. The first would change the term of office from 2 to 4-year terms for the village mayor and trustee positions. The second would schedule elections in even-numbered years only. Do you support or oppose these measures, and why?
Actually, it's one measure. They're together. You vote them up or you vote them down. It was not organized in a way that they could be voted on separately. So you vote yes or you vote no. I am opposed to both of the measures. I do not think that 4-year terms are a good idea for our village. While I personally understand the desire to not run in an election every 2 years, at this stage, we don't run for office for our own convenience. So I don't think 4-year terms make us accountable enough, and I think a 2-year term is appropriate. I'm also concerned, and there's a new wrinkle to this because there's a bill in the legislature that may or may not have been signed today by the governor, which is going to move city and village elections, 2 even years, but not town elections. So and not town and county, and city and county elections. So I would think it's important for us to be on the same election cycle as our elected officials in the county, and that's the even year. I don't know what's going to happen with this bill that's passing. I think if we'd known that the bill was passing, there might have been a different referendum, but it's too late for that. So, but in general, I am opposed to moving to even years and moving to 4-year terms.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Chin?
Thank you. I actually support the measure. First of all, I was super inspired that it was brought forth by Mr. Liberti's students. My daughter was one of his students in AP Government, and I just love their involvement. They studied our voters, they interviewed our voters. This was a data-based proposal. It was a research-based proposal. And I think when I go back to talking about power and privilege and equity, I think that when we're constantly working on elections, it's not a matter of anybody being lazy, but it's like that's what we're doing. So I would love to see our elected officials get to work and work for 4 years and not be, when I started working on this campaign, that was in December. So if we stay on the current cycle we're on now, we will start working on the next campaign again in December. The next, if I get sworn in, I'll be sworn in on Monday, December 4th, I believe. So then it would be like a few weeks later to start working on the next campaign. That just doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Chin, this one goes for you, starting.
Yep.
Explain why, in your opinion, the village should or should not proceed with installing river gauges. If you support installing gauges, would you favor purchasing or renting them, and why?
Thank you. I think that we need river gauges as soon as possible. I'm totally in support of that. I mean, for any product, there's advantages and disadvantages to renting or buying, so we'd have to look at particular packages and compare them. If we rent them, we could stay more up-to-date and more progressive with the latest technology. If we buy them, it would be a one-time purchase, and then we'd be stuck with it when new technology came along, and we'd want an update, and then maybe we wouldn't be able to afford it. But I think that it would make residents feel a lot more comfortable if they could have some kind of access, like an app or some kind of like live understanding of where the river levels are. So I absolutely support that. I go to all the board meetings and I hear residents come forward who have asked for this, and I think it's the least we can do.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Lucas.
Yes, we had river gauges, and they were removed, and I think that we do need to install them again. And I think but I don't think river gauges in the village of Mamaroneck are enough. And I think with the federal and state funding that's available to do projects, intermunicipal projects, I think that this is a great opportunity for us, for the village, to partner with some of our upstream communities and have a series of river gauges that can provide information both to the village of Mamaroneck, but all the way downstream. I think it's long overdue. And I want to go back a little bit to this election issue, because I think that while I worked with the students, I've worked with lots of students on many of these Okra projects and on campaign projects. This project the data was from 2020 and 2019, the highest turnout year and the lowest turnout year. And some of the claims made about who votes weren't particularly vetted. So I think that in order to make these big changes, I think we need to rely on more than a study from some high school students. And I think that this is a very, very big change. And in reality, whoever is sworn in December will not be working on an election for another year. The election, it's a 2-year cycle.
Thank you.
It's not an annual cycle.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Lucas, this is the next question. Explain why, in your opinion, the village should or should not, oh wait, that's the same one.
Oh, okay. We could probably talk about that longer.
I'm sure. What measures should Mamaroneck take, if any, to reach the New York State Climate Act's greenhouse reduction goals?
Oh, I mean, I think that's, we have a very active committee in the environment that is constantly asking us to do more and more and more. I think there is, we're adopting I think we will be adopting a new stretch code, which is the code that is more climate friendly. And I think that we have already tried to require some green infrastructure. We used to give bonuses for it. Now we require it as part of the land use process. And I think that anything we can do to make our community more resilient and more in keeping with the state climate goals is essential. And our new building inspector has made some proposals along those lines, and I hope that we'll adopt them.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Chin?
Thanks. I think that measures like the bike paths and encouraging more pedestrian safety and use of the bike paths, back to my idea about that shuttle in Telluride, it's called the Galloping Goose. I would love to see it here in Mamaroneck. I think that if we had something like that, people wouldn't be out driving around in the village on the weekend. I keep hearing people say that they drive around the block over and over and over again to look for a parking spot. So I think we could practically eliminate that. And I think that we also need to, in our requirements of our builders, require builders to use environmentally friendly materials, and also look to our own use in our village buildings of solar panels and other energy efficient lighting. Make sure that we're using thermostats in all of our buildings so we're not running air conditioning or heat overnight. Maybe lights could turn off automatically when people are out of the room. My dad's an energy engineer, and this is how he spends his time, and this is our dinner time conversation. So I know there's several measures that we could take that overall would reduce our spending too.
Okay, thank you. This is the last question.
Ooh.
It starts with you, Ms. Chin.
Okay.
What is your opinion of voluntary Village of Mamaroneck committees? Why are they important, and what value do they contribute to the community?
Thank you. So as a member of the planning board, I'm a volunteer on the planning board. I understand how important it is to have residents who are just going about their normal lives and then bringing their own personal lived experience to a committee. So, for example, if you look at somebody's participation, they might be thinking about their own lived experience or their own children on the streets or their own experience trying to cross the street, trying to find a parking spot. So I think it's important that there are committees where people step forward to volunteer who are passionate about an issue and are bringing their own experience to it, in addition to several of the boards that we have.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Lucas?
So I've been on several of these committees throughout the years. I think the first month I moved to the village, I was on the landmarks committee, and we couldn't run the village without them. I mean, we have plenty. Some are mandated by law. Others are committees that the village has created. But it does two things. It helps the village. It helps the village accomplish what it has to accomplish in terms of land use applications and land use procedures. So it meets a very practical goal. It engages village residents in what's going on in the village, which is something that doesn't happen in big cities because there's just a smaller percentage of people who are involved in local government. And it helps really get people involved who may run for office. I think a lot of people who are on the Board of Trustees now and have been in the past are people who started out on boards. So I think that there is no way we should limit our boards and commissions. There's been discussion about eliminating some of them. I think they're just the lifeblood of our village, and we're very lucky to have the volunteers we have.
Okay, thank you very much. It's time for closing statements. Ms. Lucas,
Okay.
You have your closing statement.
So, well, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for making this possible. When I first ran, I compared this forum to a job performance, a job interview, because I was being judged on my qualifications for being a likely trustee. I think now it's a performance review. And I see residents all the time in my campaigning and in just my traveling around the village who don't necessarily agree with all of my positions, but they think that I'm doing a good job. They think I have common sense, and they respect the way I respect them and the way I respect the job and take the job seriously. I work with staff. I'm just pleased to work with the staff that we have. They're all professionals, and they are always willing to go the extra mile for the village and work with the Budget Committee and work with the Arts Council and work with the Tree Committee and work with every volunteer committee to make sure that they get what they needed. I'm also as a trustee, I never want to forget that I'm a resident. I'm a taxpayer. I'm just like anybody else, and our job is to adopt laws, to adopt a budget, to adhere to the budget, make sure that our budget is not a drain on resources, and always bearing in mind that the residents are more important than the Board of Trustees. Also, through the years, I've developed relationships with county and state officials, and I think.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Chin?
Yes. Now is a critical time in our community, a time when just voting no is not enough. We need leaders who tackle the challenges of our village with thoughtful and ambitious action. For me, this campaign is beyond political. It's personal. Mamaroneck is my home, and it's shaped me and my family into who we are today. It's time to elect a leader who understands not just the history of Mamaroneck, but its future. I'm a lifelong educator and champion of the arts. I've demonstrated that I know how to work hard and navigate institutions to enact change. I've always been actively involved in Mamaroneck schools and will continue to serve as a bridge between the Board of Trustees and the school community. Through my work as a flood recovery volunteer and land use board member, I understand the difficult issues ahead of us on a personal level. When I stepped out of my house the morning after Ida hit, I knew the families on line at FEMA. As I drove shuttles to and from St. Thomas, MHS, and Washingtonville, I was serving my own friends and family. I'm open-minded, engaging, friendly, and knowledgeable, and I want to collaborate with residents to hear them and work to create a vision that we share for our village. I believe, as Martin Luther King Jr. said, that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I can count on your vote. Early voting starts Saturday and runs through June 25th, and Election Day is June 27th. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, everybody. That wraps up our forum. Join the League of Women Voters in your local area. It's not just for women. Okay, and thank you. You can applaud your candidates.